Hi, this is Steve Siebold, and I'm here today at the Bone Allen Mansion outside of Atlanta with Deron Ferrell, who is one of the top leaders in World Financial Group, has been in this business for a lot of years, had a lot of success, and we're very excited today to be able to interview Deron. Deron, thanks for coming to the mansion.
Steve, it's great to be here. I love it. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming. Tell us about your background. I know you've been in the business a long time. We were just talking about it off camera. If you can tell us about your background in this business.
Steve, I grew up like most people. We all have dreams. Your parents are always telling you can do whatever it is you want to do. And my dad was in the Navy, and he would be deployed, gone quite a bit. Grew up in Navy housing, Quonset huts, things like that. So we never had much, but we felt like we did. But somehow, I always felt like there was something I was going to do. And I always felt like I was going to make money. I don't know where that came from because no one in my family ever made any money. But I just had some big dreams. And I was very active in sports, loved sports, was doing well in them. And in Texas, football is king. And played ball and got a scholarship. But I didn't like school. I wasn't really a good student. And since I wasn't a good student, and most corporate America was going to look at, what school did you go to, what's your degree. I just knew my dreams weren't going to come true in that environment. And I was 24 years old, and I was invited to a meeting that Jack Linder gave that meeting, and I showed up on a motorcycle. Now, for me to be in financial services, as you were introducing me, to be where I am today from the start, I was 24 years old. My only means of transportation was a motorcycle. Couldn't afford a car, and I heard I could maybe make $300 a month part-time. And to me, that meant four-wheel transportation.
Sure.
That meant a windshield, no bugs in the teeth, right? So I was excited. I'm hearing that, but what really caught my imagination was that Jack Linder said, here's a place where you can make $100,000 a year. And we don't care what school you went to or didn't go to.
And what year was this, Deron?
This was 1981. And I'd never heard anybody say anything like that. And the dream machine in my head was going off. I'm going, hey, I hope this is all true. I hope this is right. And I loved the environment. I loved everything I was hearing. But I knew when I tried to go to sleep that night, I couldn't. In fact, that's always been a test. When I talk to people, I said, how did you sleep? What did you think of the meeting? And if they tell me they slept like a baby, I'm worried. But if they stay up all night, because that's what was running through my head, that, I heard that there's an opportunity for a guy like me to go and make $100,000 a year, which to me was all the money in the world. So I started, and I wish I could tell you I was a great success. So many people that you're probably interviewing, the reason you interview them is they've probably done very well, and they probably did very well very quickly. But that's not my story. I didn't even have a checking account when I got in the business. I was renting a two-bedroom apartment with 4 guys. Our rent was $205 a month, and we were always late. So I'm a financial disaster. And yet I'm going to go out there, show up at your house on a motorcycle, take my helmet off, still a full head of hair, but back then it was a whole lot longer. I'd take my motorcycle helmet off, my hair's sticking straight up, and I'm telling them, hey, you want to trust me with your financial future? Not a real good combination. So I read the books. I read Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, and I took the 6 steps, and every year this was going to be my year. I was going to hit the ball out of the park. I was going to make at least $50,000, and it didn't happen that year. And then, of course, I'm still positive, keeping the right attitude. Next year, I'm going to do it. Still didn't happen. And I went 10 years. 10 years struggling, never made even $40,000 in a year. And even after all those years, it finally was starting to sink in my head that maybe this just wasn't going to deliver on the dreams I had hoped for. But then we started our company, and everything changed. That next year, everything changed. So people just got to hang in there. But from that humble beginning, we've been able to be very, very, very fortunate to make all those dreams that I had at 24 years old all came true.
What was it about WFG, the new company, that made it easier for you or better for you to really start succeeding?
That's what everyone asks me, because they say, well, Deron, wait a minute. You had all the same licenses, basically the same products, and how did it dramatically change? Because it did. I mean, I went from barely making any money to one of the charter $100,000 ring earners, one of the co-founders with the company. And It truly was. What I love about what we do, we're independent. I was with a company that was captive, and we really only had one company we were representing. And this time I felt like I was representing the client. I was able to tell them that, hey, I'm here to find out what it is you want, what it is you need, and then I'm going to broker your wants, your needs, and I've got this vast array of companies, household name companies, and we're going to find the one that fits you rather than me telling you that I've got a company that's going to fit you. And to me, that was a game changer. And the other thing was now we were marketing some products that didn't just pay off if you die. You know, most people, when they think about dying, they change their mind. And so that was a tough conversation to have. And now I was talking to people about, hey, look, you follow this game plan, and you're going to be very, very well off. But heaven forbid, if something does happen, we're going to take care of that contingency too. And people went from asking me, what's the least I can pay, to going, Deron, how much money can I put in that thing? And it was a game changer. So, yeah, just the fact that we had products that people, they wanted to talk about it. Who doesn't want to be financially independent?
Sure.
So if I can talk to people about being financially independent, if I can talk to people about lowering their taxes, if I can talk to people about making their money work as hard as they work to earn it, I figure everybody I talk to is going to be a potential client. And that's how I talked, and everything changed when I talked that language.
How were you introduced to the industry?
You know, like many people, you get this phone call. And I got a phone call. I was in that 2-bedroom apartment. And I got this phone call from a director. I was a drama major. And I got a call from my professor. And he said, Deron, what are you doing on Tuesday night? And I said, why? Nothing. You know, is it a cast party, some audition? What is it, Bob? And he said, I want you to come to a meeting. Oh, in a minute he said he wanted me to come to a meeting. I went, oh my gosh, what is this one of those deals, right?
Yeah.
But I'd already said I wasn't doing anything.
Right.
So I says, okay, I'll come. And of course I showed up on my motorcycle, and I said, made the excuse when I walked in the door, hey Bob, I've really got a lot of things going on, may not be able to stay to the end, you know, doing that, preparing so I could leave.
Sure.
And I was mesmerized from the moment I walked in. And, you know, I noticed they didn't take me to the front. I noticed there was some, like the newer guests like myself, they were taken up to the front. But I guess the way I was dressed, in fact, I showed up on a motorcycle. They took me to the very back row, and there was a plant there. I remember there was a plant. So I'm kind of behind this, plastic tree, and I had to kind of look around the tree to see the presentation. But that's how I was introduced, just a phone call. And I think, Steve, what if I hadn't gone to that meeting? You know, everything changed because I got that phone call, and I went when I said I would. And like I said, I've had nightmares that what if I hadn't shown up? So my life changed with that phone call.
What about the meeting attracted you to the concept?
You know, I like the atmosphere. You know, I had these dead-end jobs. I was a convenience store clerk. I was a sandblaster. I was a roofer, construction. So I had all those kind of jobs that, you know, very, very low pay, yet very hard work. And the environment was, everybody was cussing, smoking, drinking. And I went to this meeting. Everybody's positive. Everybody's excited. I could tell they really were glad I was there. So, yeah, I think the atmosphere, the Mo-Zone, is what I felt that instantly. And then the message came across loud and clear that there's a great need for what we do. And so that captured it. The whole time I'm thinking, not so much for me because I was pretty young, but as I was hearing more and more about what we do and what our industry does, I was thinking, man, my parents need to hear this. You know, my family needs to hear this. So, yeah, the crusade, the cause, the atmosphere, that all really impressed me from the time I walked in the door.
And once you got into the new company, you guys started the new company, how long did it take you to become successful? Say $75,000 a year.
You know, I made more than that my first year, which was amazing. I made more my first month than I did the prior year with the prior company.
Did you work that much harder?
No, just like I said, the difference was I was selling products where I was getting maybe a $25, $30 a month commitment from the client. And all of a sudden I never heard this before. When I'm talking about, living and retiring and, heaven forbid something happens to you prematurely, that people were asking me, I never heard it before. In 10 years, I never heard it. They would say, how much can we put into that plan? And so I was doing the same amount of sales. I was doing 2 to 3 sales a week, but now I'm doing the same 2 to 3 sales a week, but instead of $25, $30 a month, I'm collecting $250, $300 a month.
Wow.
And after my first month, I couldn't believe it. Back then, they mailed us checks, and I made copies of them. And I remember we had a Hawaii contest going on at the very beginning of our company. And it was a 6-month contest, but by the time I got all my licenses, everything that I needed to sell the products, I only had 6 weeks. But in that 6-week period of time, I qualified for this Hawaii trip, which my wife and I had dreamed about going to Hawaii for 10 years. I'd been telling her, we're going to win this year, we're going to win. Missed it. And this time, in 6 weeks, I win the trip. And I'm thinking the company made a mistake. I'm going, what's going on? And everything changed. Money changed, the trips came. And just because I've been here from the beginning, I've never missed a Hawaii trip. I've lost count on how many times we've been to Hawaii and all our super trips. So there's maybe a handful of us that have been on every trip simply because we were here from the beginning.
Sure.
So everything changed. The trips, the money, everything that I wanted, it happened instantaneously.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think the secret has been to your success?
Boy, I don't want it to be a cliche, but it's just the fact that I wouldn't give up on my dreams. I think too many people, Steve, that they want to stick their toe in the water. They want to say, well, let me see if this thing works. And they don't take it as seriously. And I think in my case, when you ask what's the secret, I didn't have any other options. So maybe if I did have an education, maybe if I had done better in school and my resume looked more impressive, I would know I had more options. To me, I had no options. And so I'm really kind of glad that I didn't. I think the fact that I knew this was my shot, and if it's my shot, I wasn't going to let it go. So I was absolutely sold out. I planted my flag. This is where I was. I knew that if I was diligent, if I not just kept a positive attitude, that's all fine and dandy. A lot of people can get excited, positive, but I really went to work on myself. Once you make up your mind to change your mind. And I knew the way my mind thought was getting me what I had. And I knew that I was ready to change. And so I went to work on me, and I really developed skills, the knowledge in our industry, and just applying that skill and knowledge along with that positive attitude. And the fact that even though 10 years went by, I think a lot of people, I tell people on my team, look, if you've been here 10 years and it still hadn't happened, then I'll listen. But until you've been here 10 years, I'm not going to play the violin. And so, I'm stubborn, and I knew I was going to make it happen. The great late Jim Rohn, he said, keep going until. And so I would say that all the time. I'm doing this until. And I didn't put a time frame on it.
If someone's watching this, Deron, and they have, you said you don't feel like you had other options. Let's say they do have other options for other companies, maybe they're competing companies or other industries. Yeah. Why should they choose WFG over other opportunities?
You think about it. The financial services industry is the largest industry in the world. And then you take that largest industry in the world, and then you combine the most profitable industry in the world. And so where are you going to get that combination? But that industry, that financial services industry, guys like me without a college degree, I don't have a chance. There's no way they're going to look at someone like me, my resume, convenience store clerk, Elvis impersonator, waiter, dropout, college dropout. So this is my ticket. This is my entrance. And I think the stories, the people that I saw that were in the company, I felt like we're almost the premier before and after company. We come here, most of us rags to riches, and most of us didn't have any kind of success track record. And yet people like ourselves, I told you, no checking. I mean, basically starting from nothing, and to be able to make 7 figures in a year. So yeah, my answer is, hey, where else can you have entrance to that large industry, the most profitable industry? And after reading as many books as I've read, being introduced to as many successful people as I've been introduced to, I learned, I heard it loud and clear, sales is the highest paid profession in the world, but it's also the lowest paid. Mm-hmm. And the differentiator was that skills and knowledge. So I said, well, look, I can read a book. I can go to a seminar like you've done. And there's too many people out there that are good at what I need to get good at. And you take that, take the attitude that you want to learn, you're willing to change. And our industry, if you don't make money here, I say it's almost, if you don't make money here with our company, it's almost like we locked you up in a grocery store. I don't know, Piggly Wiggly, I don't know what it is out here south, but it's like we lock you up in one of the large grocery stores here, and we come back 2 weeks later, we find you dead on the floor with a note, nobody trained me how to eat. I mean, this is an industry where if you'll do what you need to do, you're going to make a lot of money.
Well, what's the downside of the WFG opportunity?
Downside is that no one's going to do it for you. You're going to have a lot of people want to help you, but I had to realize I had to take what the mentors, the training, and I had to apply it. And, you could say it's a downside, but really I always looked at it as an upside. Because if there was no guarantee, which the jobs give, but with that guarantee, there's also such a limit. I love the idea that there was no guarantee here, but that if I worked harder than the next person, I don't mind hard work. And most people, they've got to be honest with themselves and know that no matter how hard they work, they can outwork their peers. They're not going to make much more. In fact, it's all based on their seniority, how many years they've been there. And I've always, whatever I've done, I've wanted to give it my all. And I realize a lot of people don't do that. And so to me, knowing I could give it my all, I took it as a positive, not a negative. But yeah, a lot of people, they want that guarantee. And that's where I'm talking about, you got to change your mind. You got to work on that. Yeah.
What about people that go on the internet and they're disgruntled somehow with the company or something happened and they say, well, WFG is a scam.
Yeah.
What do you say to those people?
Well, I was very fortunate when I came into the business in 1981. There was no internet.
Right.
There was no computer. There was none of that stuff. Didn't really come up. But yeah, people had a stigma in their mind. Back then, Amway was real big. And a lot of great companies like that. And people had preconceived ideas about a business model like ours. And I just tell people, I said, look, we're a marketing company. And as a marketing company, we represent companies that you hear, that you see on TV all the time, Nationwide, Voya, Transamerica. These are household name companies. And the marketing side, we're just the conduit with those great companies to take their products to the consumer. So really and truly, my answer to that is that when someone asks me what I do and who I represent, I say I represent some companies you probably heard of. Have you ever heard of Nationwide? So I just mentioned the companies that we represent, and I say that's what makes us unique. That's what separates us from everyone else, is that we have access to some household name companies. And yet we're taking those great companies that have track records, many of them over 100 years, and we're taking those products, those concepts, those ideas, and we're taking them to the masses. And the fact that I can talk to my neighbor just across the street, which would never take a phone call from someone from Wall Street. And so I just explain our uniqueness, and hey, either they
or
see
get a
they
phone
don't.
call most
or
likely.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. So that's my answer there, is that we're simply, the marketing entity that has nothing to do with all the great companies we represent.
So why is it that some people think it's a scam?
I think that comes to that skills and knowledge we were talking about. I used to not know how to explain our business opportunity. And it's the words we say. And if you use, in our business, a carpenter has a nail and hammer and saw. In our business, it's our words. And our words create images and causes people to react just by a word. And if I tell you, hey, Steve, I've got this great opportunity, and you can come here and override everyone you know. Well, I think you're going to hear that word override, and you're going to go, wait a minute. That sounds like one of those deals that I got involved with, my uncle got involved with. And so I learned that there's nasty words and there's good words. And so I think that's where, when you're new, it's very, very important you work with someone that has experience and knowledge. And I find that most people have those problems. They went out right away. Maybe they went to the first meeting and they go out and they're so excited, like I was, couldn't sleep. And they're telling everybody they're going to make $100,000 a year next month. And it's just, there's a time and there's a way to say it.
Of course, WFG is an MLM, multi-level marketing, or network marketing.
Yeah.
Some people say, they write it on the internet, as you know, and they think that it's a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
Can you address that?
You know, the pyramid scheme is, first of all, pyramids are illegal. And so you just got to explain that to them. And the best way where I see that people react is when I say, do you think a company like Aegon, a company like Pacific Life, Nationwide, do you think that they did some research before they signed any marketing agreements with us? And if you say you're going to check it out, that's great. I hope you do. But I bet you don't have nearly the resources. You don't have the legal staff. You don't have anywhere near the resources to check us out like we've been checked out. And then, of course, every state has a state insurance department. And those state insurance departments, do you think they're going to allow an illegal pyramid to operate in their state? So I think we just got to educate them a little bit. Yeah, the internet sells all kinds of stuff. You research some of the biggest companies out there, there's always going to be some naysayers. But I think when they hear that and they understand we're a very regulated industry, you add the securities license on top of that. When you're federally regulated, state regulated, you got all the individual state insurance departments. I see that makes all the big difference.
You guys have also drawn some criticism because when people sometimes go to meetings, they'll see the people wearing the same color shirts and they have chants and they're very excited, and people say, well, they walk away sometimes and they say, this is a cult. WFG is a cult. So what do you say to those people?
You know, I think everybody has a different market that they go after. You know, our country, that's what I love about our country. It's so diversified. My gosh, I've got so many friends from so many different countries, and they speak so many different languages. And, you know, every office, they all have their own little atmosphere. And I don't really get that. But if I was, one thing I think we all got to decide if we're going to be successful in business like ours, we got to understand we're not for everybody. There's not a business that's out there that is. And so we really are. We're looking for people looking for us. And we don't need to change for the people we're talking to. We just need to share what we do. And I like excitement, you know. So someone that doesn't like excitement, they're probably not going to be very good here anyway. So, yeah, I love our culture. I'm proud of it. And whatever. If people say that, I'd like to find out what was said, what was done. I would have liked to have been to that meeting if they came away and thought that. But the fact that we're one of the fastest growing marketing companies out there, Steve, I don't know another company that produces so many $100,000 earners every month. Just look at our track record. I mean, if a guy like me can go from making virtually nothing to over $1 million in a year, I just tell my story in that regard. You know, people relate to the story. So I just start telling them about my friends and that before and after again. Here's a place where you come with your dreams and you're willing to work hard. And once I know that we are regulated, once someone brings it to my attention that household name companies aren't going to deal with us unless we were already checked out, I think it's easy to overcome.
Some of your critics, not your personal critics, but the critics of World Financial Group say that one of your core products, the FFIUL, is a bad product because effectively, as you know, they'll say, well, as you get older, the cost of insurance goes so high that it's really not worth it. It's a bad product, and that's been on the internet a lot.
Yeah.
How do you address that?
Let me tell you a real example. My parents. I started with the company in February 1992. And we had a very similar product. It was variable universal life, but we got the same criticisms with that, with WRL at the time, Western Reserve Life, which is now Transamerica. And my parents were in their late 50s, early 60s. And we set them up with a great program. And they only funded it about 5 or 6 years. And they never put a dime into it. My mother passed away last May, and the death benefit that we paid to my dad was more money than my parents had put into the plan. My dad hasn't put any money into it for, oh my gosh, probably 18, 19 years. So if he gets more expensive, he hadn't seen, because he hasn't put any money in. He's 88 years old now, and hopefully he's going to be here a whole lot longer. But there's no need to put any more money in it. And at that time, there's going to be $90,000 paid. So if that criticism on the product you just mentioned, I've got to say this. The biggest fear that most people have when I talk to them is the fear of losing 20, 30% of their portfolio that they have in their 401k plan. And I just turn it around. I say, compared to what? If you're saying it's too expensive, I'm going to say compared to what? Compared to how much you're going to pay in taxes or not in taxes? So I learned that comparisons really, really helps. And I know for myself, I in that lost decade, I lost close to 50% of my portfolio twice in a 10-year period of time. And if you've got a pretty good sized portfolio and you lose 50% of it, hey, I don't care what the expenses are in that product.
Yeah.
It's nothing compared to the expense I had having my money exposed to the market. So I love the Index Universal Life.